Don't worry, children, everything's going to be quite all right, as long as you're a little rich kid whose father owns a prime piece of London real estate. Hello everyone and welcome back to my childhood bedroom, where you will find things like this underwear that was cut off my body when I got run over by a car, and these leggings that were also cut off my body when I was run over by a car. Apparently my parents are keeping these as mementos. Okay, we're gonna talk about Mary Poppins again. Returns. Mary Poppins again. A lot of people really love this film, and that's great. I like people loving things. That's a good thing. I thought some of it was nice, but I also have a lot to say about it, and I'm going to do that, and you guys asked me to do it, and I'm doing it. I'm talking about it. It's happening. There's obviously going to be spoilers in this video, but there aren't really any stakes in Mary Poppins. Like, none of you are expecting any of the children to die. You're not going into Mary Poppins thinking that it's going to end badly. So is it really a spoiler? Is any of this really spoilers? There's no stakes in this film, so it's not a spoiler. So I'm going to cut to the chase because I feel like a lot of YouTubers skip around this bit, but it's kind of important we talk about it. YouTubers, we get invited to film premieres. At some point, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, decided that they were going to start inviting social media people to premieres, and that is what happens. It's so good. It's one of the best things in the world for me because I love movies and I get to go to premieres now. I don't make the rules. This is just what happens. So the idea is we post that we're at the premieres. I guess it reminds people the films are coming out. People go see them. It's great for me. I love it. But I don't want to let the glossy glow of the premiere distract me from the actual film, and it's really hard to kind of separate the two, but I think I'm getting better at it. So before I continue with the rest of this, Disney, if you're watching, please don't stop inviting me to premieres. Please, I will be a corporate shill. I will say so many good things about your films. I'm really sorry in advance for anything mean I'm about to say about Mary Poppins. Please still invite me to premieres. I love you. Mwah. Okay, now I can get over there. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Mary Poppins again. Returns. Mary Poppins again. So there's 3 canon Mary Poppins universe films, okay? So you got the 2 actual Mary Poppins world films, and that is Mary Poppins 1. So you got 2 actual Mary Poppins world films, and the first one is Mary Poppins the First, and the second one is Mary Poppins Again, which just came out, which is called Mary Poppins Returns. And then the other one is Saving Mr. Banks, which is about P.L. Travers and Disney trying to buy the rights to make Mary Poppins the First. And Saving Mr. Banks, it kind of divides people because it could be seen as Walt Disney, this horrible, evil Mr. Moneybags guy, basically beating at this woman's spirits until she gives him the rights to her most beloved story, Mary Poppins. Or it can be seen, as I like to see it, as a film about the joy that these stories can bring people, and how sometimes, even if there is a big capitalist cog behind it, it still brings people joy. And that's the most important thing, is that Mary Poppins has made so many people happy. And Mary Poppins Returns also seems to be making a lot of people happy, and that's more important than any stupid thing I'm about to say. But I'm still gonna say it. So we're gonna go through the characters. We've got some new characters and we got some familiar faces. We're gonna start with Mary Poppins herself because that's the title of the film. So Mary Poppins, she has this kind of Aldrich style monster godness to her that we kind of overlook. So she's this immortal being that can kind of do things that are unfathomable to the human mind. She exists in another dimension to what we could ever comprehend. And occasionally she floats down from the sky on an umbrella, having never aged a day. She's basically a god. But most importantly for me, a lot of people have commented on this, including one of my favorite YouTubers, that Mary Poppins, the original, is the most socialist curious of the Disney films. They're literally called the Banks children, and their father is Mr. Banks. He cares so much about money that his name is literally Mr. Banks. And she wants to show him and the kids that there's more to life than money. Feed the birds tuppence a bag. It's a simple concept, but it's one that Mary Poppins did very well. And this is my first big problem with Mary Poppins Returns. The central conflict of Mary Poppins Returns is essentially that they're gonna have to sell their prime piece of London real estate. And the Banks children, Michael and Jane Banks, they don't have any money. We also see that Jane has joined like the labourers union, and she believes in fair pay and she helps out at like food banks. And they introduce this as like an important part of her character. And I thought, yeah, get that, socialist, curious Mary Poppins. That's what the film's always about. So this is the big problem in the film. They're looking for these pieces of paper that will prove that they've got these like shares in the bank, and that will mean that they don't have to sell their piece of prime London real estate. Everything will be solved. And the whole way through, I'm thinking like, it's gonna be that they realize they don't need the money, they don't need the house, or maybe they'll get the money or they'll get the house back and they'll decide to sell it and help out with the Sisters Labourers Union. It'll be one of those stories. That is not how Mary Poppins Returns ends. It is really so weird. It is maybe the weirdest ending to a Disney film ever. The ending of Mary Poppins Returns is that they can't prove that they have the shares. So they're probably going to have to sell the house. And I'm thinking at this point, okay, kind of a bummer. But I guess they realize there's more important things than the money because they have each other. And that's what Mary Poppins wanted to teach them, that they have each other, they don't need the money. But no. Then Dick Van Dyke shows up as like a little cameo. And it turns out their father invested the money that Michael gave him, like the little shilling,
with tuppence for paper and string.
Tuppence a bag.
When you deposit tuppence
in the bank. And over many, 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 many years, it's become many, 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 many monies. So the day is saved, not by Mary Poppins, not by realizing that money's not important and family's more important. The day is saved because it turns out they're rich. I mean, they're not wrong. This is an important lesson we should be teaching children, that really your problems are all solved if your family has a lot of money and you're a trust fund baby.
I'm a trust fund baby, you can trust me.
That is essentially the plot of Mary Poppins Returns, that everything's fine if you're a little rich kid. I mean, yeah, that's true. Maybe that's what they were going for, a bit of hard reality in this Mary Poppins Again film. But it's just not what I was expecting. And everyone was coming out of the film like, oh my god, it was so beautiful, so beautiful. I'm just there like, yeah, if your daddy left you loads of money, life's pretty sweet. So that's my major qualm with this film. The morals are really skewed. Kind of the opposite of everything that our original Mary Poppins stood for. But if we move away from that, there's another thing that really bugged me about new Mary Poppins. So with old Mary Poppins, we know that she works in mysterious ways. She's not just going to solve all your problems for you. She wants you to figure out how to solve them yourself, like a good nanny does. I'm all on board for that. But they go about it in a really peculiar way in Mary Poppins Again, in that she won't help at all. Well, the worst example is there's this bit where they have to turn back time. So they come up with the ingenious idea of turning Big Ben's hands back so that they turn back time. I actually enjoyed that. I thought that was very fun and whimsical. We've got this new character, Jack, played by Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he's trying to climb the clock tower. It's this whole thing, and for ages he's trying to fix the clock handles, and it looks like he's not going to be able to do it. After all of that effort of climbing up the clock tower, all of that effort of trying to move the handles, suddenly Mary Poppins is like, actually, I could just fly up there the whole time and I'm coming to help you now. It's just like, why didn't she do that in the first place? Like, I know she wants them to learn a lesson. I know they have to learn it for themselves. But this was just like a bunch of people nearly dying from climbing a clock tower. But I guess because she's like an eldritch god, she just doesn't have a concept of death. To her, it's just funny to watch human beings try and do things. That's what I'm going to go with. In general, I thought Emily Blunt's performance of Mary Poppins was really good. Okay, so we're moving away from Mary Poppins. We're moving on to Jack. Jack is our new Bert. And he was like raised by Bert, so he knows a lot about Mary Poppins. He's a lamplighter instead of a chimney sweep. And he basically does all the same things Bert does, except they've decided he can't have a thing with Mary Poppins in the same way Bert did, because Mary Poppins is like, what, I don't know, probably about 3 million years old, but she was probably also 3 million years old when she met Bert. and I guess they decided Jack was gonna like Jane. Semantics. I really like Lin-Manuel Miranda. Obviously, I'm a huge Hamilton fan. I just wish he'd written the music. That's all I'm gonna say.
Is Lin-Manuel Miranda writing music for Mary Poppins? No.
And then we have the Banks children all grown up. Michael and Jane Banks have grown up, and Michael got married and he had kids, and sadly his wife died. We're supposed to feel very upset about this, but the problem is they decided, because it's a children's film, we're not going to know anything about the wife. They didn't want us to feel attached to this person and then be really sad because she's dead. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't want us to feel sad for this family that their wife has died, but then not want us to feel sad about the wife being dead. You've got to pick one or the other, people. Michael Banks in this film is insufferable. The idea is he's possibly falling into the same traps as his father, Mr. Banks, and ignoring the children because he's so stressed out about money. The only difference is, I guess he has more of a reason to be stressed out about money because they might lose their piece of prime London real estate, which is worth millions and millions of pounds. So he starts to become kind of mean halfway through the film, but it really is out of nowhere. And the problem is, he can't fall into the same traps as his dad because his problems really are solved by having loads of money. Turns out his dad was right. Turns out retcon everything original Mary Poppins said because his dad was right. He was probably thinking in that moment, oh my God, all this time I thought my dad was wrong for putting money first, but in the end it was him putting money first that saved me in this situation. Dad was right. I should be horrible and mean and just dedicate my life to money. That is the moral of Mary Poppins Returns. And then we have Jane Banks, who's really sweet, really lovely character. And as I said, she's joined a labourers union and that goes absolutely nowhere at all. I guess they just wanted to give her something to do. I thought all of the Banks wee baby children were really good. It's always difficult to find good child actors. I thought they were all great. And I liked them. I thought they were fun. It was nice to have them be the complete opposite of the original Banks children. Because one of the problems with this film is that everything's pretty much a mirror image of something from the first film, but these Banks children, they're a little twist on that. They're very capable, they know what they're doing, and the point is they need to learn to be children again and to enjoy life and be a bit silly. But the problem is, like, the villain of the film is this money-obsessed guy who for some reason hates the Banks family. Is that ever explained? But none of the villains can ever really seem truly evil because it turns out money does solve all the issues. So one of my really big sads when I was watching this film, but also happies, is that they go into this 2D universe and it's beautiful. Disney 2D animation is still incredible and it just made me so sad for what we don't have. Like, why can't we just have some more 2D animation films? Please, Disney, please revive 2D animation. The whole bit where they go into the Cherry Pit Bowl and it's all 2D is incredible. If the entire film had looked like that, I would have been sold. So I'm going to take you right up now to the end of the film. You think the film is over, and at that point I'm sitting there like, yeah. Okay, Mary. And then it's not over. They have this entire bit with a bunch of balloons. And a lot of people have been saying to me, people who even really enjoyed Mary Poppins Returns, that the balloons was a step too far. There's this whole song about going off in balloons. And I just could not stop thinking of It. I couldn't stop thinking of the clown from It. And then I couldn't stop thinking more about Eldritch Horror. And I was like, maybe Mary Poppins is in cahoots with the monster from It. I know I need to get over my thing about Mary Poppins being some kind of Eldritchian god, but I can't. It just makes too much sense. I've figured it out. So the end of Mary Poppins is that she feeds them all to her friend It from Stephen King's novel. And you know what? I think that's a pretty cool ending. It's not what anyone was expecting. It really subverted everyone's expectations. So I'm okay with the balloon bit. I mean, I'm not okay with the balloon bit. It was so long and the film had ended already. Just let me leave. I feel like that's pretty much all my thoughts on Mary Poppins Returns. Obviously, I didn't despise it. It didn't offend me other than it completely subverting the morals of the original film. I think my main problem is I feel like I have yet to see a Disney live action film from recent times that has a soul. My worry is that there's somebody working on it who's really passionate about it. They get like a scriptwriter and a director who really want to make this beautiful piece of art, and then it gets butchered by boardrooms. And I have this image in my head. Okay, scrap the bit about them deciding they're going to give the money to the laborers union. That's too political. You gotta get rid of it and just have the money solve the problems. Do you see what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is just how these films are turning out, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, you probably will quite like Mary Poppins Returns. People seem to be really enjoying it, so don't let any of this put you off enjoying it. I still had quite a good time. It's just something to bear in mind, you know? Just think a little critically about all of the media you consume and think about why it might have ended up the way that it did. Why am I even making a video? It's Christmas. I'm tired. I really can't believe my parents still have these. I'm kind of glad they do. It's weird. I like it. I like weird things. Anyway, I'm gonna go now.